Most puff prints fail because we just don't put enough ink down. So the secret to puff is there is no secret. Okay, it is more ink, more lift. Simple as that. So how do we get more ink? Well, if we stick to the 6 fundamentals, which is the mesh, the blade, the pressure, the travel, the angle, and the speed, we can use these to get as much ink as possible. Let's concentrate on the mesh. So the mesh, we need as big a hole as possible. That's as low a count as we can. I would like to use a 24 or a 32. Basically, we don't want to be using a 43 or anything above that because we want maximum ink. Of course, we're going to lose detail, but this is puff. We're going to lose detail when we actually lift through the dryer anyway. So we need to have this coarse mesh, and with this coarse mesh, we need to pair a thick stencil. Some people call it EOM. It's just a thick stencil. We need to have a big, thick gasket to push this ink through. If we think that, in the words of a stencil, exactly what that is, the stencil, we're pushing ink through holes, and we're pushing ink through a pattern that we've made from a stencil. So if we think of a stencil as, let's say, a snowflake that we cut from a piece of normal paper, something about that thin, then we can see that if we cut a snowflake out of that and we push the ink through that stencil, the thickness of the ink that's left behind is the thickness of the stencil. Now, if we take the same snowflake and we make a stencil from a thicker material, and we cut the same snowflake and we push the ink through, the level, the depth of the ink that's left is the same depth as the stencil. So we can see here, if we make a thicker stencil, we leave a thicker deposit of ink. Thinner stencil, thinner deposit of ink. So it makes sense to have a thick stencil. How do we get a thick stencil? We can use 2 different methods. We can multiple coat. So what this means is getting as much emulsion in there as possible. A good technique is to double coat both sides. That's a 2 and 2. Then dry it. Then double coat again on the shirt side. Then dry it again. Then double coat again. And we're building a layer of emulsion. We want to build on the shirt side, not on the ink side, so that we end up with a good thick relief stencil, a good deposit of ink that's going to be left behind. We can use that method, which is just the double coat method, but this is quite time consuming. So what we can do is we can use capillary film. Capillary film has already been built to a certain thickness. You can buy it in all sorts of different microns. So I like to use 200 micron. 200 micron will give me just enough lift, but still a good clearance as the ink shears and gets left behind on the shirt. We can use 2 different screens. We can use a screen with 100 and a screen with a 200. But basically the capillary film has been manufactured on a carrier sheet to a set micron. This cuts out all that double coat dry. Because let's face it, we can put 8 hours into making a screen and then still have it mess up on the exposure unit. Once we have our thick stencil, we can see, because we can feel on the inside, the ink side, that there is no relief. But on the shirt side, we can physically see that lip, that depth of emulsion. And that's going to dictate how much ink we leave behind. Remember, the more ink we leave behind, the more lift we get. There are other players as well. Here we've got the squeegee. I like to use a really soft squeegee, so a 60, 90, 60 would be perfect for me. And the angle, again, needs to be big. Everything we can do to increase the amount of ink that we leave behind, we're going to pay with detail. We're going to lose some detail, I know, but this is puff. As it lifts, we're going to lose some detail anyway. So, to recap, what we really need is as much ink as possible. The more ink, the more lift. Good capillary film, we can have a capillary film onto screen in about 2 to 3 hours. If we use the double coat method, we're going to be looking at 6 to 8 hours before we can make a screen. So for ease, not for expense, then I like to use cap film. We can get it from anywhere, but I like to use this fat film here. Once we have our good deposit down there, it's not uncommon to do multiple strokes, so a double stroke, even a triple stroke. We want good pressure on the flood bar, or even better, use a squeegee as a flood bar. This pushes ink into the holes, and then the print stroke empties the holes of ink. This leaves behind this beautiful crisp edged wall of ink, and then we apply a little bit of heat on the press, just enough to flash, lay our colours on top, and the magic happens in the dryer. Make sure the dryer is nice and low and slow, and we should get fantastic results like these. So if you want to see more information on topics like this, then subscribe to Palmprint, and even better, drop me a comment in the comment section to let me know what topics you are interested in. I'll see you on the next one.